Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the year's first episode of Primetime Gaming with Mr. Boomstick and Friends. And as you can see, folks, we're doing all camera today, all up close and personal. Some people making special appearances because other panel members are out, doing family things. We are expecting Risk It for the Biscuit from the Xbox Ultimate Podcast to join us. We're also going to have, Everborn Saga joining us momentarily. Crispy Bomb, I think, is still a little bit under the weather, so we will get him back hopefully next week. Asante is going to be on vacation with his family for 2 weeks, so we'll get him back in a couple of weeks. But folks, what a way to open up this year's first primetime gaming with some knee buckling from the FTC, folks. We're going to get into that. It seems as if the hard stance that was originally put out there for us to talk about and, discuss, they seem to have backed off a little bit just based on the first pre-trial hearing that happened yesterday. Fable in the news. And I don't understand why it's constantly, Fable specifically, is constantly being beaten down. And we have not seen the game outside of a small trailer. Mm-hmm. We did have some 4chan, hilarity, if you will, talking about how the game has switched engines. And I will say this, we're going to open up with Fable talk. And the reason why I want to open with it is because I am very privileged to have to know someone that's working on the game. And they reached out to me to clear the room, to clear the air of the false rumors. And I do have some information I want to put out there for everyone to get excited about this game, because it's going to be something special. It's one of my most anticipated game outside of the eventual announcement of Banjo-Kazooie, whenever that's going to be. I am a big Fable fan. I have been since its inception on the OG Xbox. I have unbelievable faith in Playground Games. I think what we're going to see from this team is exactly what we saw from Guerrilla Games. Guerrilla Games was a team known only for Killzone. And then they came out with Horizon Zero Dawn, and it blew everyone's eyeballs to the back of their heads. And I believe, based on what I know, that's going to happen with Fable. So we'll get into that. But let's get into the introductions and start first with Steel Rain. I needed a powerful voice, and here you are, brother. Welcome.
Boom, those words are just so precious to me. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is I am him, the one and only Steel Rain. And I'm just here to bring that live, raw, and uncut perspective. As I say, that RTS view, real-time strategy, pulling ourselves out of the world, look at the darker crevices of the map, pulling those resources together to build up that foundation. Boom. You got some fire topics to get into, a lot of heated debate that could potentially happen tonight. So with that being said, man, I'm excited to get to it. And there's so many lovely people in the channel, man. So let's get to it, man.
Thanks so much for that. Hargeet Chani, I know that you're devastated because the holiday's over. That means back to work. Boo.
Yeah, get to work already.
How you feeling, Hargeet?
Yeah, I mean, whatever, right? So it's not like I, freaking do hard labor. So, you just have to add the little work time, and then you can go back to gaming, right? So, but happy New Year, everyone. So yeah, let's hope it's a really good year for Xbox. But actually, it's going to be a good year, I think, for all of the platforms.
Yeah,
really looking forward to Zelda. I'm sure Nintendo has other things coming as well, and we'll see what PlayStation has to drop once they start talking as well, because both Xbox and them have stopped talking.
Yeah. I agree. I think Sony's been in a holding pattern for a while. I think once the ABK deal is done, you're going to see them spring into action. Yeah. They're going to make an announcement of their. I would imagine that their first game show that we didn't get last year is going to be something of legend. They're going to.
I'm sure it will be.
Everything is going to be out the bag. Everything that they're working on is going to be put out there. Someone knows how to put on a good show. They know how to get the fans excited. So that is probably going to happen. But right now, obviously they're limping around and
they have to
they're waiting for Microsoft to get the red card. You know what I'm saying?
I think, like, to your point, I guess basically like whatever Microsoft does their showcase, a little bit later, you're going to see the Sony showcase
100%
to answer. And yeah, they're going to drop some hammers, right? We already know, like, from Konami telling us that there's a Silent Hill remake coming, right? And that was because Konami's like, we don't want to stay silent. We're going to tell them. So they went out and do it, but we know there's going to be other hammers they're going to drop. So yeah, looking forward to it, right? That's what you want, like, go back and forth, get us entertained, and like get us hyped up for everything that's coming, right? So
1000%.
that's the whole point. So yeah, I hope 2023 we're not having this holding pattern stuff, and like we finally have.
I don't think
to talk hype.
Yeah, no, I actually think that this is going to be the year that Xbox really does step from behind the shadow of Sony. For a multitude of reasons. I think that if you look at first party, which is supposed to deliver big, right? We know that Game Pass is going to deliver absolutely astounding titles. Second, third party and indies. And then when you add to this beautiful Banana Boat Sundae a cherry on top in the form of ABK, it's a year that I don't think Microsoft could ever repeat. I can be honest with you. It's going to be hard to beat. I think anyone is going to be hard to beat what Microsoft potentially has lined up. And again, of course, that's still, we're going to get into the FTC stuff because, like I said, it does seem like they bent the knee a little bit. And this is only pre-trial 1. But we'll get into that momentarily. Wandering Dutch, what's going on, brother? We know we only got you for an hour today because you got an early meeting. So we're going to get right into the nitty gritty, and we'll go to you first on Fable, and then we'll go to you first on the ABK situation so we can get you in and out. How you feeling, brother? Happy New Year.
Yeah, I'm feeling good. First podcast back tonight for the new year for us and for prime time. So looking forward to both. Well, really enjoyed the first one and looking forward to this one. So yeah, and looking forward to jumping in with these fine gentlemen as always. And great to see Steele on the show as well.
Nice. Yeah. It's gonna be a good show nonetheless. And the Mag, what's going on, brother? How you feeling? Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year, everybody. It's you know what? I'm excited to be here tonight. Look at this panel. Okay, we got Dutch, we got Hargi, Chani, and then we got, by the way, if you've ever played a first-person shooter with Steel Rain, it is the most embarrassing thing I've ever been. I'm sitting there going, I got 3 kills. And he's like, I'm at 47. And I'm like, how is this even possible? Anyways, it's unbelievable. The guy's incredible. Steel Rain, it's always an honor to do a show with you, brother. It's always great to do it. Boom, of course, being our showrunner, Happy New Year. We got a lot of big things to come up this year. We're going to E3 this year. Indeed. So, it's going to be a hell of a party, anyways, we got some great topics. We got some great things to get into tonight. Let's get into the show.
We may have to put together a skit while we're in LA.
What do you think? What do you think the unicorn horn wasn't coming with me on the trip?
I'm just saying that Xbot 420 versus Pony Master 420 could potentially happen in a battle royal type situation.
I might have to buy one in LA because I'm just thinking to myself, security's going to see that horn inside my the luggage, and then the Americans are going to drag my ass away. They'll be like, "Get him out of here!" Yeah, so it's like, I think I might just have to buy it in LA and I'll dump it in a garbage bin before I leave. But anyways, it's going to be a hell of a time. We got a lot of things to talk about. It's going to be a monumental year for gaming, and I'm excited to see what happened. You guys remember, it was only a year ago that at this very time, we got that phone call going, Microsoft just tried to buy Activision. Remember that? It was in January. So You know what? You never know. It's going to be a hell of a year. So anyways, guys, let's get excited. Let's get into it.
Well, listen, let's open up with the Fable controversy. Obviously, I don't know how it got as much steam as it did. It's 4chan, folks. If you consider 4chan to be a source, you are misled. I can assure you, 4chan is. Yes, have they gotten some things right? Sure, but it's single digits as opposed to something as big as Fable coming from Playground Games. This came out on the socials. It ran across social media like wildfire, and of course was immediately put out by several of the big time journalists like Jez Corden that we know, and he called it false. But the reason why I'm bringing it up tonight is because, like I said in the opening, I'm very fortunate. I don't have a lot of connections, folks. This is still a very small channel, but I have several friends in the industry. One of which is a verified source that is working on the Fable project.
Yes.
And Steel Rain knows who I'm talking about, and we are good friends. And why I want to talk about it is because I want to calm a lot of the fears. They reached out to me, and they basically told me that they were very disappointed with what has come out now. And that's the thing that's frustrating. I think we we sometimes forget that human beings actually make these games, right? It's not done by a computer. It's made by many talented men and women in the industry, right? And they read social media. They see these things going on. And when you are working 10 hours on a project and you see these kind of talks coming out there that you know are false, it's hurtful. It's hurtful. It detracts from what you're trying to do. So I again, it's like fortunate enough to know the said person. They reached out to me and they wanted to clear the air. They wanted to let me know, because I again, talking with them, they understand that Fable is one of my most anticipated projects currently at Microsoft. And I said jokingly, the only thing that could beat it is a Banjo-Kazooie, because I'm a big nerd. I like the bird and the bear, and I eventually want my Banjo-Kazooie, and hopefully we'll get it. But for me, out of all the projects that's going on at Microsoft right now, it is Fable. Fable for me is the one. We've heard the Cognito, good friend of the program, great friend of the community, he said that the hashtag just one. That's what he's waiting for. This is my hashtag just one. I want Fable to be as show-stopping as it was when we first saw Horizon Zero Dawn. I remember watching that E3 and seeing that, and I said, I can't believe what my eyes are seeing. Right, like I was blown away at how she was pinning down these dinosaurs, jumping all over the place. There's sparks, there's pieces flying all over the place. I said, that can't be a real game. It turned out to be a great game. Probably one of my favorite games on a PlayStation 4 that year. So again, speaking with me anonymously, they reached out, and I have a specific quote that I want to read. And basically they say this, folks. As someone who works on Fable, the current rumors are not true. It is playable, and we're working through making the open world game playable. But it's currently looking beautiful, and people are going to flip when it's shown, end quote. Now, again, there's not a lot there, but there's enough for me personally to know, besides this on the background, that this game is going to be what a lot of people are expecting or constantly see on a Sony platform. Those lifelike, real type of graphics, an environment that you look in around and you see the wind blowing and flowers are going in the wind. That is what you're going to get. So I'm just curious, to get the panel's temperature on this. And I'll start first with Steel Rain. Steel, obviously, this game is important to Xbox because it's an IP that, in my opinion, is legendary for the brand. I know people will say, well, you have your Halos and you have your Gears and you have your Forzas, but there's something about Fable that does ring a bell for me and does all the check marks. And I'll never forget the first time that I ran into one of those werewolves in Fable 1. And I was just, I couldn't believe the magic and the way the magic worked and the way the combat worked and the way you were able to literally change the way you look based on your decisions. For me, it was pure magic. When you hear that, first of all, the rumors of them changing the engine, that was the other big thing. Right. I can assure you that as of today, that's not happening. Has not been changed to Unreal Engine 5. It is, in fact, the Forza Tech engine. And that's as of today. Now, does that change tomorrow or 3 weeks from now? I couldn't tell you. I'm not working on the game. But right now, today, it is using the Forza Tech engine. What are your thoughts on this, of the revelation that there's nothing to see here, folks, about that?
Well, I mean, as far as these things go, I mean, nowadays it always comes across as though there's somebody wanting to stir up some kind of news about these, about games in development, right? Especially when it's a game like Fable, where it is in a state where, in the people's minds, outside of the hardcore per se, it is going to really need to hit to open itself up to a wider audience, because it is kind of further removed. I want to almost say a decade at this point. With that, I mean, and hopefully me and you do have the same source. I do believe I know you're speaking in reference to, but as far as I understand it, I have to agree with everything that he stated, or that they stated, I should say, because in this case, it is a nothing burger. If it's coming from 4chan, and again, anything could come from anybody and anywhere, and there may be some truth in that. There could be some underlying issues. There's maybe a game-breaking bug that's part of it right now, and they're trying to figure it out. There's a lot of games that don't come together until that final week, that last push, and that very well could be the case here. Who knows? But in the speculation of it all, if I had to guess, right, and again, I like to take the educated consumer perspective, ECP. For me, knowing what we have gotten out of Playground thus far, they have made the best arcade simulation racer to date.
History of gaming. Let's call a spade a spade. Yeah.
In Forza Horizon. Great. Them as a dev studio, I have no doubt that, yes, although they're going in a much different direction, the attention to detail that they put into the cars, into the environment, into things that necessarily don't matter when you're doing 200 miles an hour through Mexico, through whatever country that they end up choosing, is a marvel in itself. So to me, I just leave it at the hands of the studio. I have faith in them. I don't have any reason to doubt them. And again, based off our source, I'd have to listen to them and see whether they're going to speak for themselves or not. So
I agree. I agree. Like I said, I have confidence in the verified source. I have confidence in Playground Games. Wandering Dutch, I want to go to you next, brother. You are a huge fan of Playground Games. And obviously, when we all, at least for me, I did the old eye roll when I saw the people reporting on they're changing it to Unreal Engine 5. They've rebooted it. It's all the work went to nothing. It was just such ridiculousness. When you hear that someone that's attached to the project is quoted in saying, when the public finally sees this game, you're going to flip. What kind of confidence do you have that Playground is going to deliver?
No, in Playground, it's one of them developers that you have. Sony have a couple of them. Insomniac being one of them. You just know whatever Insomniac put out, they're going to deliver. It's going to be a great game. It's going to play great. It's going to look great. Playground Games is one of those studios for Microsoft. Whatever they put out is absolutely going to be of the highest quality. Not only is it going to be one of the highest quality, it's going to be a technical showcase. It's going to be a visual showcase. It's going to play great. It's, to be honest, I've seen the rumors, and I spent a lot of time kind of dissuading people from the idiocy that was in that 4chan post. Primarily the Switch, the Switch, and I know this, even though some indie developers were trying to have an argument with us. The switch from the Forza Tech engine, a highly modified version of the Forza Tech engine, to Unreal Engine 5 is far more complex than just a simple overnight switch. And it's not something that would be able to be completed. And we're talking, this rumor was a ground up start again. Yep. The game is starting from scratch on Unreal Engine from 2022 and releasing in the fourth quarter of 24. Yeah, no. Well, that is physically an impossibility to be able to push 100%.
Out
an open world AAA game of that quality within 2 years, especially with a very large engine switch in there. And the same person that you're speaking about who worked on the game also jumped in my chat this evening, and when we were speaking about Fable, and mentioned when we were speaking about the engine specifically the engine differences, and he said it would be a big headache to change what would be required for some of those custom scripts that they've got in there. Specifically with some of the assets, it wouldn't be a case of just being able to get them to work. You would lose a lot of the stuff, so you have to redo them or create them from scratch. So it's the whole time frame thing that was put on there was hilarious. But the fact that they put it's been scrapped and started from scratch, I was like, there's absolutely no chance.
It's rubbish, to say the least.
Playground Games, of all people, would scrap their own engine, which has worked absolutely beautifully for them, and they've modified significantly, to just work on Unreal Engine 5
Who better to use their engine than Playground Games? I'm just saying.
than themselves. Yeah.
And you've already heavily modified it, so why would you go and heavily modify Unreal and spend
Why would you
more
change it?
Especially that timeline. I think that's what really threw it out of the window, is that type of timeline. Like, come on, really? But
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, listen,
And obviously, I'm the same type of person. I know you'd probably want it yourself, but I created a custom Fable Series.
You sure did, brother. One of the best in the
specifically
business.
for it. And yeah, I'm waiting to make use of it properly and actually play Fable on a Fable console. But you know, when that time comes, it'll be glorious. So
Yeah,
I can't
I
wait.
absolutely agree. Yeah, again, it's one of the besides being so in tune with the community, right? I get to meet so many different people, from every race, creed, color, sexual orientation. I love it. I think it's fantastic to be able to to interact with so many different people. Even the smaller guys like us get a chance every now and again to run across a developer or three. I know a few. I don't know a lot, but I was not concerned at all with the rumor when I first heard it. But what got me excited is knowing how much love is being poured into this game, how precise everything is being accounted for. It tells me that when this game releases, whenever that may be, and we're hearing, and again, it's just a rumor that it might be, second half holiday 24 is what's potentially being targeted, which makes a lot of sense because if you look at Microsoft's timeline, it's bonkers, right? Like, if Hellblade closes 23, Avowed is expected to open 24, and how do you close 24 with it, with a game bigger than Fable? I don't know. It's hard to say, but that would be a serious pair of bookends to open up Obsidian and Avowed for 24, and to close with Fable with Playground. And again, the game has been in development for quite some time, so we will see. But rest assured, a lot of us have it on good authority that Playground Games is handling the reboot of the Fable franchise with class and precision. Hargeet, let's get your opinion on this, brother. Obviously, you've heard what the developer had to say to a lot of us, which is great. I'm very excited that they feel comfortable talking with us. They feel, they have trust. When you saw the report and it was immediately destroyed within like 2 hours, I think it was destroyed. It was a laughable report, and obviously, I even think that the post has been taken down, which is good for them. What are your thoughts on this? What are your expectations, knowing that someone is saying when we see the game, we're gonna flip?
Yeah, I mean, Fable is a fun franchise, right? I've liked the series, the trilogy they had. They did some other ones that was it like Fable Legends or something? I don't know. They were trying to do other ones that, and then the Connect one, and they weren't really there. But 1, 2, and 3 were really good. I think 1 and 2 were really good, and 3 was decent. It was still good enough. And the co-op progressed and got better as they went along in the series.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that the next one is going to do co-op. Look, those are the kind of things that potentially might push them to a different engine, but if they can handle it within the engine, they've been updating the engine to handle these things, and they do have some level of co-op play already in Forza Horizon 5, for instance, right? So they do some level of that today. So they just have to kind of retool things. So I think everything's there. The only concern would be if you don't have enough developers, right? They have to kind of expand to another team, and it may be difficult for them to find talent. Hopefully they've made the engine easy enough to be able to use for those coming in. And so if that was what the reasoning was, fair enough. But, if they can handle it within the same engine, that's all the better, because it makes the talent within those two teams pretty good, Turn 10 and Playground, right? They know that Forza Tech engine pretty damn well. So that would, if that was an issue, that would be the only reason to look at another engine. But the flip side is, Forza Tech is pushing their systems better than anything else except id Tech, right? So, every time I hear UE5 and I'm like, dude, you have id Tech, you're going to get Call of Duty engine. And you're telling me those are not engines that you should look at? How many people in the industry work on Call of Duty? it's so massive. And just imagine how many studios they're going to get that could make games with that, right? And if you're going to pick another engine at some point, that's got to be the one you look at. Call of Duty is based on id Tech anyway, but they have expanded that, enhanced it quite a bit.
Right.
And they're the ones delivering like ray tracing. They're the ones delivering 120 frames. They're doing crazy things with those engines, right? So those engines have done a lot, right? So, and not to pick on them, but 343's Slipspace has not done any of those things to the level. It does the 120 frames, but it has not gotten to the level that even Doom Eternal can give you ray tracing at, what was it, 60? I mean, they've pushed that thing. They've done everything they can with that engine, which is awesome, right? So if you're going to start looking at other ones, that's what. But if they're doing it with the Forza Tech engine, great. The games look fantastic. You look at both Forza Motorsport that's coming out, and you look at what they did with Horizon 5, and that's a cross-gen game, Horizon 5.
Yeah.
And it still is like, and everybody who watched that trailer thought they were doing a panning video shot of a real life. This is a real video shoot,
and it was the actual game.
And it was not. It was the bloody game, and you're like, oh my god, did that just show me the game? Holy crap, that is unbelievable, right? and they did it. They delivered it. You play that exact scene at the beginning of that game, and it's incredible what they've pulled off in a cross-gen game with that Forza Tech engine. So yeah, I mean, and even if you look at the trailer, right? If that's supposed to be in engine, just how good does that trailer look, right?
It's amazing.
Now, I don't know if that's what you're going to get or not, but if it comes close to that, damn, right? Yeah. It looks really, really good. So yeah, I hope it comes. And then the as far as the 2024, that'd be a great time frame. As far as like, I think they started 2018ish, right? So
2018, yeah.
That gives them about enough time to potentially have the game. It may take longer than that, but to punctuate that, ABK happens. 2024's end includes a Call of Duty in Game Pass and a Fable. Dude, that is an insane, fall lineup, right? If they have Avowed at the beginning of the year, throw in something else, right? Maybe Compulsion's game comes. You got 4 big games, right? But Call of Duty is a headliner on its own, and that's coming directly to Game Pass. And you get, a adventure
Fable
game
at the back end of the holiday.
Right? Just imagine that's a massive fall, right? So.
This is the Xbox forecast we've all been hoping for, right? Like this is what we're looking for. First of all, let's welcome in one of the other best business beers in the business, Brisket for the Biscuit. What's up, brother? Happy New Year. How you feeling?
Hey, how you doing, guys? Happy New Year. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Listen, dude, it's great to have you here. We're gonna get to you in a second. We got a lot to get into, and I know that you have been talking up the FTC shenanigans for quite some time on your show weekly. And we got some new information from yesterday's pre-trial that it appears that maybe there's some bending of the knee with the FTC and Microsoft showing their fangs, which is something we were hoping that they would do. And yeah, they did it. But let me bring in the Mag. Mag, listen.
Yes, sir.
You love open world games.
Yes, I do.
You love Sony's third-person, story-driven, adult-themed type of games. In fact, you platinum most of them.
I do.
This has the potential to be one of those games that Xbox gamers have been waiting for, right? Mm-hmm. When you hear a developer come out and multiple shows, not just talking with me, talking with a lot of people to clear the air of the fact that it's staying with the Forza Tech, that they are not rebooting anything. The game is open world. It is beautiful. We're going to flip when we see it. What confidence does that give you?
First of all, it gives me a lot of confidence not because of what he said, what they said, is because of the developers that are making the game. First of all, before I get into this, I just want to say it's an honor to be the maid from the Brady Bunch here because I'm stuck in the middle. I just noticed. And then, of course, I happen to be in the presence of Jack Black at the bottom of the screen there.
I love it.
I saw him come in. I'm like, is that Jack Black or is that? I'm like, oh, it's Brisket for the Biscuit. There he is. Never mind. Anyhow, in all seriousness, listen, this game is going to be something. And when everybody asked me, they're like, what do you look forward to with the Microsoft Game Studios? What do you look forward to with Bethesda and all that stuff? I said, you know what? Throw it all out the window. I don't care. Fable is the big game. Fable is the one that I'm waiting for. Fable is the one that my wife and I are literally got a candle in the window for, waiting for this game, okay? Starfield, okay, it's going to be awesome. The other one, what the hell is the vampire one? Redfall. I'm like, all right, I'll play those games. And I'm going to play Starfield. I'm going to love that too. But whatever. But the thing is, the big one, Avowed, we know nothing about. you know, but you know, except the guy's hand light's on fire, whatever. Anyway, the thing is Fable. And it's not because of the previous Fables. It really isn't. I played all the Fables, okay? I enjoyed them. I had a great time. You know, I got STDs from hookers. I did the whole 9 yards, whatever I had to do during those games. Great games, okay? Very similar to real life. Excuse me. Anyways, in all seriousness, they're great games. But the thing is, I look forward to Fable because A, I want a fresh start. And B, I want to see what these guys can do because you remember, it's been, what, 5 effing years.
Yeah, 2018.
When Phil came out there and said, and more on that later. Phil, don't kill me that I made fun of your voice. I'm not making fun of your voice. But that's what he said. You remember that? He said their open world expertise is going to be put to the test in a new game. More on that later. It's been 5 years. Yep. So I want to see what they're going to do with that. And we all knew when he said that, we all knew what he meant by that. We knew that it was going to be Fable. So the thing is, we were excited for it. I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be stunning.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a mix of Horizon Forbidden West mixed with that Kenna Bridge of Spirits kind of like animation vibe. Like maybe a mix of both, like that kind of thing. That's kind of what I'm leaning towards. I'm not really 100% sure. I don't think they're going to go ultra realistic like the what's it called? The Assassin's Creed series. I think they're going to go just slightly Pixar-ish, but with a tinge of that Horizon Forbidden West sort of vibe. That's what I'm kind of looking at, like really vibrant, colorful, incredible. I think there's also going to be areas that are going to be dark and dusty and very goth and all that kind of stuff. I'm looking forward to. Either way, I'm super excited. Was it Matt Booty that was the one who was like going to wanted to show the game?
Yeah,
and the developers are like,
they said no dice.
Yeah, they're like, yo, pump the brakes, dude. But if he's excited. And he's like, I want everybody to see this. I need everybody to see this. This is the kind of thing this is what gets you excited. And that's not PR talk. That's not just him saying, oh, well, let me go stir up the hornet's nest a little bit and get people talking. I don't think it was about that. I think he was 100% genuine. Like, holy crap, the world needs to see this game. And they need to see what these guys have done with it. Right, so I think it's that kind of thing. Now, the one thing you did mention earlier, Boom, when we started the show, you talked about how the developers are people. Let's get into that controversy for a couple of seconds here. And it said developers are people. These are not just like nameless, faces that kind of do this kind of thing. When I hear things like that, it's preaching the choir for me because being in the restaurant, but previously in the restaurant business for almost 30 years, in the hospitality business for that long, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's why I liken my situation to how these developers go through what they go through, what they feel and everything else. And people think, what are you talking about? What are you talking about, Mag? Well, I'll tell you what I'm talking about. When a guy works 10 hours a day on your steak or on your food or on everything else, and then you sit there like a jackass and give them a 1 star because, they didn't give you enough, sauce on the side or something. You know what I mean? That's the kind of stuff. Okay, and that guy, you know what? And let me tell you something. We do read those reviews. Most of them are trash.
Yep.
Most of them are just whatever. But the thing is, we just whatever, troll. But that kind of stuff does happen. It's the developers go through the same crap year after year after year of slaving in front of those computers and they're, going half blind from staring at those bloody blue screens for years and years and years and thousands of hours just for some jackass to sit down and go, it doesn't jump that high. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's the kind of stuff that happens. And so, these are the things that, and what's happening here is exactly that. And what I see here is that silence is breeding contempt with people.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it all boils down to. Silence is breeding contempt. You're not hearing anything. You're not getting any news, whether it's Xbox supporters or Xbox haters. When you don't hear the news, they're getting pissed off. And because of that, the Xbox supporters are like, come on, man, throw us a bone here. It's been a bad year. Or the Xbox haters are going, throw us a bone so we can make fun of them. Right? Yeah. That's what I see. That's the kind of balance you're looking at, right? But anyways, that's what's happening now. I'm glad that someone came out and said something. We're going to see something about it. But yes, I do understand. There is a part of me that does understand. Obviously, we're getting to the point where okay, guys, we've been supporting you guys for a really long time. We've been doing a whole lot of shows. Can you please give us something like that we can chew on? Like, you know what I'm saying? Release these games already that are coming out this year. Give us dates or anything. Give us something to get this ball rolling. We've been looking forward to this ball rolling for a very long time. And we know that Fable's part of that lineup. I understand that Fable's going to be that ace up the sleeve. In my personal opinion, I think they're going to hang on to that game until Sony comes out with something hot. Like when Sony comes up with something really hot, they're going to release Fable then, because you're going to want to take attention away. I don't care what anybody says about how Sony's not their competition.
It is about market share for sure.
It is, right? So imagine this, Boom. Imagine they got Wolverine coming out, and Wolverine is the talk of the town.
Yeah.
You want to launch Fable somewhere around the 6-week mark of Wolverine. I'm just pulling out Wolverine as an example, right? It could be anything. Could be Last of Us 3 or whatever the hell they're going to do. Whatever. I'm just
Last of Us Part 2 remaster.
Or the remake. Yeah, that's coming. That's coming too. 104.95 Canadian.
With factions, I'm telling you.
Yeah. With factions. Yeah. Well, faction's going to be 108.95 guaranteed.
I'll come back.
So yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So this is what I see. You hang on to Fable. Not too long, but you hang on to it long enough that, yes, you want to be able to steal that thunder away from that market share. I would say a 6-week window of something that Sony's going to drop that's going to be big. And that's what you want to do, because you want to keep the focus on Xbox. Yeah, okay, people are still going to buy. I'm still going to buy that Sony game, whatever the hell it is. But at the same time, you get the general public is going to look at it and go, you know what? I can hang on to that. I'll hold off on that Sony game for a few weeks because this just dropped. Right? And it's in Game Pass, and I don't have to spend all that money to do it. I'll play that now, and then maybe I'll wait for a sale closer to, like, let's say just after Christmas or something, and maybe I'll play that Sony game later on then. That's what they want to do, because you're trying to steal. Look at what Netflix and Amazon Prime and all these other, and then Crave in Canada, HBO Max for you guys, and all that kind of stuff that's going on. Right? What do? They do exactly the same thing.
Yep.
They try to launch something within 6 weeks of each other that will take the focus away from Stranger Things or House of the Dragon or Rings of Power, whatever. That's what these companies do. They try to do that to draw your attention away so that your focus is on that. If you're going to launch Rings of Power, then guess what? Paramount Plus is going to be launching Yellowstone within 6 weeks of that, because they want the focus away from there and onto them. Right, and that's how that's the video game industry is going to be no different, because Game Pass is a subscription service, and that's what they're going to do: constantly draw attention away. But anyways, long story longer, I just want to say I'm super excited. It is my number one anticipated Xbox game that's going to come out in the next 5 years. That is definitely going to be the one. So I look forward to it. I can't wait to see it. And my God in heaven, would it be absolutely incredible if they showed Fable while we're standing there in LA. I swear a new earthquake will happen that very minute.
I love it. Everborn Saga, are you back, sir? Or he's still stepped away. Risk it for the biscuit. What's up, brother? First of all, let's talk Fable. You saw the controversy. Obviously, it came out of 4chan. We've all spoken to a developer. Again, we don't know if it's the same person, but we know that we spoke to a developer that had this to say. As someone who works on Fable, the current rumors are not true. It is playable, and we're working through making the open world game playable. But it's currently looking beautiful, and people are going to flip when it's shown. Now, this is coming from the same developer that, after they were announced in 2018 on the E3 stage by Phil Spencer as being acquired, they said, we want to become the best developers in the world. A lofty goal, sure, but one I think we could only ever achieve as part of Microsoft. I mean, what are your thoughts on the clarity given by the developer, who was tired of seeing the naysayers and the false information being thrown around?
Look, I didn't really put any stock in that at all. I don't know if anyone noticed. I didn't comment on it on Twitter, or I didn't have anything to say about it, because it came from 4chan, the original comment. So, it's more likely to be a load of BS than it is likely to be true. 110%. Like, every time anything comes out of 4chan, some stuff does come out of 4chan and it's true. Yeah, I think absolutely what Mag was saying is true. Is that because we haven't heard anything, people are just starting to make stuff up now. But here's the thing that I think people just don't realize, and it's understandable how this rumor's kind of come about. I think a lot of people don't understand that they've pretty much built an entirely new side studio. They've brought some of their developers across from the true Playground or the original Playground, obviously to run the studios. But they've also brought a lot of new people. They don't teach that engine in school for development, so that's not a thing. So you usually do C++, C#. You would normally do Unreal Engine, and you'll normally and possibly do Unity. Unity's not always taught either, but it's always usually C#, C++, and Unreal is what you'll get taught. So it takes time to teach those developers how to use the tool set. The other thing is that engine was not tooled up to make an open world RPG. It probably has some tools that are transferable, but it doesn't have all the tools that are transferable. So they've got to build those as they go through the game. Now, when people are talking a lot about the graphics, and that developer did mention the graphics, is I never had any doubt that this game is going to be beautiful. I mean, if you've seen any of their games, one thing absolutely undeniable is they make beautiful games. That's never been a worry for me. People don't know that I'm a massive, massive Fable fan, like huge Fable fan. Played everyone. And I was like the typical dude, bro, back in the day. So I played Battlefield, COD. That's maybe about it. Like, and then when Gears of War, Halo, but then when Fable came out, I was like, man, this sounds really interesting. Because I don't know if you remember Peter, is it Molyneux? He hyped that game. Like, you are going to be able to do this, and it's going to affect that. Yeah. And then you can do this, and it's going to do that. And like, I was super hyped. I'm like, wicked, man. I could be like a bad dude, and it will affect everything in the world and me. Look, it came out. Right, it wasn't quite that, but it was definitely a step in that direction, and that to me is what I'm excited about, and that's what I want to see from Playground. Is I want to see that realized, because I think now we have the tech, and we know this is going to be this current gen. So they have the tech to build out a crazy AI. They have the tech to build out a world that develops and evolves with you based on what you do. That's what I want to see out of a Fable. That's what was the most exciting thing about Fable back in the day. And they hit it a little bit with 2. Like 2 had some of that stuff in it. I think it was the first time you could like marry someone. I think you could get diarrhea from like eating stuff that was wrong. You could get drunk, like all this stuff that was kind of brought in with Fable. And this is look, graphics, great. But to me, gameplay is king. And I really do hope that Playground's focusing on that. And if they are, that's not going to be like a 2-year game, man. If this game takes 7 years, that makes 110% sense to me. If they don't say anything about this game, it's because they're not at the point where they can. And I don't think they should have to. I don't think we should be pushing developers, bringing up rumors, sending D-pics, if that's your thing. Like, I don't think we should be doing any of that to get release dates or to get squeeze developers for more information than they want to give when they want to give it. Because when they're ready, they will give us the information. I don't want those developers to feel under pressure at all. What I want those developers to do is to give me an absolute banger of a Fable. Like, Fable has like high expectations. I think everyone on the panel has said, this is my game. It's my game too. Like, I want this game. Like, put every other game aside, I want this game. But I don't want it rushed. And I don't want people like making up stupid rumors, putting pressure on developers when they've got to defend themselves about a game that hasn't even been released yet. It's a bit ridiculous to me. I never put too much stock in any of the rumors that come out immediately. But one thing is for sure, this game is going to be beautiful. Yep. What I want to see is just a little. So I want these guys to push. This is the game to do it. To push the AI forward. To push the open world thing forward, because it's been stale for too long. And Fable is that game that can bring that forward into this gen. So if they do that, man, I'm super excited for a studio like Playground could do it. So I'm super excited for it. I have more than faith in this game. And I wouldn't listen to any of these rumors, man, until Playground comes out and says something. I think ignore the rumors. I didn't even respond to anyone. I got hit on Twitter with stuff. I didn't even respond with it. Like, it's like, whatever, man.
Hey, Riskit, can I just add something to
let's get your opinion, because you're the last to go here. Obviously, you're back. welcome for joining us, brother. We're going to get into the FTC stuff right after we're done with you. We're going to
that's what I came for.
Well, we're going to get to it because we're going to go to Wandering Dutch first because he's got to get out of here in about 15 minutes because he's got an early meeting tomorrow. But give us your hot take on Fable. Fable's the one game I think most people on this panel are through the roof excited about. For me, it is like the pinnacle game coming for Xbox first party. For me, it's the hashtag just one that has COG excited. What for you? Where does that fill the role for you?
So here's the thing, right? Like, I understand when people are questionable of 343's next move because they've let some people down. Not saying they let everybody down, they let some people down. And I understand when people are questionable about compulsion or people who haven't delivered before. But what has Playground given us except excellence? Right? If you don't trust Matt Booty, that's fine. Trust Playground Games quality control. Right? And for a studio that has given you nothing but 90 meta games or high 80 meta games, if they have any, right? Can we not give them the latitude? When was the last time, and this is not to say anything negative, but what is the delta between Naughty Dog games or Polyphony games or Guerrilla games? And we give them that leeway because they deliver quality, right? So if we know that Playground Game has always delivered quality,
I wouldn't say Polyphony does, but yep, that's cool.
Right. So if we know that Playground Games has delivered nothing but quality, and they just released a 90 meta game at the end of 2021. If it takes a few years for them to get to their next banger title, then so be it, right? So we can talk about any sort of rumors they want. When the trailer comes out, then you can judge whether they're doing the right thing or not, right? When you get a release date and it doesn't get delayed or it does get delayed, then you can talk about mismanagement or any of this. But Playground Games, there is zero reason to doubt anything that they've done so far, unless you can point to me a time where they effed up, and no one can. So to me, it's really as simple as that. Fable is in good hands. And if you didn't think they were in good hands because they've only done racing games, guess what they did? They brought in IDOS.
Yeah, IDOS Montreal is also helping with that. A lot of people seem to forget about that, and that's a big deal. Just look at what they did with Guardians of the Galaxy, and that should tell you that's one of the best games from not last year, the year before, without a doubt.
So and I'm not even going to add any more to that because to doubt Playground Games is to just doubt history and facts.
Yeah.
So if that's the side you want to be on,
it's the losing side. I will tell you that. Listen, let me catch up on we have a new channel member, so I want to thank you for let me just get to the private chat. King Webb, hey brother, thank you so much for becoming a channel member. I super appreciate that. The first super chat of the day comes the way of a very good friend of the program who sent me a G.I. Joe custom Xbox Series X controller, which blew my freaking mind. Jimbo Jangles drops a very generous $10 super chat and says, "Hey, Boom and crew, I'm driving through beautiful Aspen, Colorado, heading home from a work trip. Great views, a great podcast to keep me entertained. On my way back to Denver, it doesn't get much better. Thank you, salute, brother. Drive safely, and appreciate it very much." Wandering Dutch, I want to go to you first. We're getting into the FTC stuff here. Idle Sloth, good friend of the program. He's basically the internet sleuth when it comes to getting the information. He got all of the pre-trial information. He put it out there on the socials. Everyone's talking about it. But I think really what stands out, there are two things that stand out on what happened at this pre-trial. One of which comes the way of Beth Wilkinson. Now, if you don't know who she is the attorney representing Microsoft, or one of the front runners for Microsoft's legal team. And she told the administrative judge, Honorable Chapell that if there is no resolution to be reached with the FTC, the deal will go ahead and close after a remedy is reached in all the pending jurisdictions. Now, why that's important is because, according to Microsoft, they say this: we expect the EU and the UK to settle soon, possibly with remedies, and then go to the FTC with those results to expedite the FTC's resolution, I should say. And obviously, that comes the way of ALJ Judge Michael Chapell, who commented on during the hearing. Dutch, I thought that the FTC's lawsuit was not only frivolous, but a waste of taxpayer monies. And what's interesting is a representative for the FTC who was there during the pretrial says that they are currently willing to listen to concessions. But that's not what Lena Khan and the FTC first announced when they announced on December 8th that they were looking to sue Microsoft to stop this deal. She said, and I quote, "We are not in the business of making deals." What are your thoughts on the potential of the FTC kind of taking a bit of a step back, even at the pretrial?
I think Lena Khan's had or at least someone's had words with her. I think that's what's happened. I think someone stepped in and said, "Listen, your tactic of attempting to force the government into changing the laws in order to get your way isn't working. What you need to do is start actually finding remedies for the situations that you." And this isn't just Microsoft and Xbox with this takeover. This is several of the large deals.
This is across the board, right? This is
across the board. And it's a tactic. She mentioned that this wasn't even just on the Microsoft deal. This was previously. She went on. I don't even know which show it was. It was some kind of interview she was doing, and on that interview, she said the tactic is: I don't care if we lose. These cases essentially provide me with the backup in order to go to those who make the laws and get these laws changed. And I think ultimately they've said it's not working. That's not what we're here to do. We're not here to just come here and change the laws. What we're here to do is find remedies for these situations so that if these takeovers are in fact legal, but we have some concerns, remedy those concerns and then get the deal passed. So make sure there's a resolution to the issue. So if there is such like a staff issue where you're concerned that staff are not going to be tracked correctly, then you ensure that those staff are tracked correctly as part of the deal. So you go, okay, that's fine, that's the remedy. You don't say, no, we're just going to outright block the deal, even though there is a remedy available, because if that goes to court, that is literally wasting money, in which case the government will end up just getting rid of her and not doing anything else. It's that ultimately the bottom line is Lena Khan could find herself out of a job if she doesn't correctly monitor these things with the circle that she's working within. And I don't mean anything just to do with Xbox and Microsoft. I just mean the tactics in general with how she's approaching the tech sector, how she's trying to go all guns blazing with the tech sector and big tech. It's not something that she needs to be doing. So I think someone's had words personally. And
there's something. There's not to interrupt, Dutch, but there's something to be said about being as arrogant, because that's all you can call it, right? Is when you go out and you say, "We don't care if we lose, we're just going to sue." Those lawsuits are funded by the taxpayers of this country, and I think considering that most of the world, not just the United States, is in a recession, to simply throw money, millions of dollars away on a case that you're going to lose for some sort of personal gain or personal ideology, I think is incredibly wrong. I would even dare say it's misguided.
But not just one, not just one case. 11 cases. 11 cases.
I think the major issue you've got here as well is if you have a look at what happened the other day in the Senate and Congress, which was an absolute fiasco.
Embarrassment.
Not just an embarrassment, but I think the issue Lena Khan has here is if she's going to go all guns blazing to get laws changed, and then she sees Congress can't even can't even get to the bottom of who's going to be in charge.
Who's going to be the
speaker of any laws?
Yeah, it's disgusting. Yeah,
you're not changing laws.
Zero chance of anything getting passed because no one's going to agree. So what's the point in going forward with this ridiculous notion that I'm going to do X, Y, and Z because you're going to get laws changed? Because it's not going to happen because you don't have a government that is in sync that's going to pass anything anyway. So you may as well just actually find remedies to these situations and get on with it. And at the end of the day, I think Lena Khan's just sat there, looked at what is happening within the government, spoken to some of the people that she's working with, and went, listen, it's not a case of just bending the knee here. Like, what we originally set out to do isn't a possibility. We can't go all guns blazing because it's not going to work. Like, it isn't actually going to work. We need to actually start speaking to these companies and finding remedies. And I think ultimately that's the situation. I think they've had to sit there and just say, listen, we're just going to start speaking to them now. It's got to that point now where we've said and they stipulated we are not taking this to federal. We have no plans to take this to federal. So if that's the case, the plan all along was to talk to them about remedies. Yeah. They just wanted posture in public to see that they wanted this white knight approach. Oh, we hate big tech. That's essentially it is. It's posturing. And I've said this across the board, even with when we saw the CMA do their posturing as well. We think X, Y, and Z, and it's just posturing for public opinion. That's all it is. And at the end of the day, behind closed doors, they're having these conversations, and ultimately it'll get done. But Microsoft had to posture back in order to just kind of say, listen, if you want to do that, we'll do that. But ultimately, end of the day, these remedies will go into place. Ultimately, when they look at everything that Microsoft's offering in terms of the fixes, they've also went out of their way internally as well. Bethesda Studios QA testers now have unionized.
Yeah, that's official. Yep,
which is massive. And of course, they're getting one step ahead. That is before the official unionization of Activision Blizzard staff.
Yeah.
So essentially they've got ahead of the game. So when they're talking about how staff are being treated, okay, well, we're willing to let our QA testers and developers unionize. So let's go. Let's get this done. Like we've got the fixes, we've got the remedies. You name it, we've offered it. So it's as straightforward as that.
Yeah. Well, listen, Dutch, I know you got to get on that here, brother. Sell your brand real quick. Let people know where they can check out the Midweek Mix-Up podcast each and every week, and where they can subscribe to your YouTube channel.
Yes, definitely. It has always been a blast. I know it's short and sweet this evening. Unfortunately, back at work and meetings do happen. So, I did want to stop in though and have an awesome hour with you chaps as always, and actually get on the show as opposed to miss it entirely. So, no, it's been awesome. You can find me everywhere at Wondering Dutch, of course, home of the Midweek Mix-Up podcast every Wednesday. We have the Sea of Tuesdays podcast as well on Tuesdays, of course, naturally, and the weekend edition on Sundays. So stop by, show your love there. Of course, if you enjoy the content, please like, share, and subscribe. And same for these awesome gentlemen on here who've all got awesome channel and content. And of course, Boom, our glorious host here.
Appreciate it, brother. Thank you.
Everybody, it's been a blast as always. Have an awesome evening, and chat, you as well.
Yeah, we'll see you next week, brother. Definitely. Thank you so much. Before I bring in Steel Rain, I want to go to Hargeet because Hargeet, we were laughing in the green room, and I do want to read what the FTC attorney James, I believe it's called Wing Garden, who was there at the pretrial, had to say, and they said that the agency has no plans at this time to file a lawsuit in federal court. The FTC authorized staff, and when he said that, he meant himself because he's the one that's handling the case, to participate in settlement talks. But there are no substantive discussions at this time. Obviously, this is the first time that the two entities are meeting since the lawsuit was announced. And like we just said moments ago, Lena Khan and the FTC basically said that they're not in the business of making deals. We know from Brad Smith, who is the one of the top dogs over at Microsoft. He says that he said it. He came out and said we didn't even get a chance to get in there and offer anything to the FTC before they did the lawsuit. This seems to be from the 8th of December to now the 4th of the 3rd of January, which of course was yesterday. A little difference in stance, and Laundering just said just recently before he got on out of here, he thinks that maybe a conversation might have been had. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I mean, look, I predicted she was going to sue because this is all posturing. Look, and she's not looking to change the law; she's looking to change precedent. She wants somebody to back down and say, "See, I won. This can happen," right? And then continue to try to get more and more that way. To try to not even bother changing the law, just subvert the FTC into something else, right? And okay, that's a theory of the way to work, but ultimately, all those companies can sue, and the government, the courts will say, "Sorry, the law says this, and you went afoul." I think the biggest thing here was 2 of the major unions of the country said, "What the heck are you doing? We want this deal to happen." And being on that Democrat side and going against unions just can't look good. Okay. And those unions, I'm sure, went to the legislature, to the representatives and the senators and to the Biden administration and said, what are you guys doing here? Right. We wanted this to go through. This is going to change the gaming industry. You're stopping us doing the right thing. You need to stop this, right? You need to let this go. I don't know if that happened or not, but it sounds like it did, because it does seem like they're more conciliatory. The second part of that, though, is the staff has never bought into this baloney, right? The staff of the FTC does the job of the FTC, and they want to do the stuff that they're supposed to do, which is this going to harm the actual competition in the market? Well, the answer is no, but hey, they wanted some remedies. Okay, cool. Let's talk. And, we can just let it go through. That's generally what happens, right? And so now it's not Lena in this courtroom. It's one of the people in the staff, and they're going to follow their normal FTC process. Now, I'm sure they're being instructed to do blah, 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 whatever, right? But ultimately, in a court, they're going to have to go by the law, because the judge is not going to care about any of that, right? It's not about posturing. This is why she keeps losing her cases. The judge is going to say, what does the law say you can do? Is this going to break that? If it's not breaking it, can you guys work out whatever you want? If not, I'm just going to toss it, right? That's what the administrative law judge is going to do, right? And then the FTC can say, no, we're going to appeal that with ourselves and go to a federal court. But I think what's going to end up happening is what they said, right? What Microsoft said is, hey, you know what? The CMA and the EC, we're working with them. We think we're on solid ground. I think those are going to go through. And when those go through, we'll bring those remedies over here, right? The concessions we make. If you're willing to take them, great. If not, we're just going to do it anyway, right? Go ahead. We're going to call their bluff. Go ahead and sue us. Bring it to a federal court, and we'll see what your case has for merit, right? And as they said, they're not even interested in doing it. So essentially, it's moot. The whole thing's moot. The FTC, posturing and all that, it's moot. If they're not even going to bother bringing it to a federal court, they're done, right? Because ultimately, unless they bring it to a federal court with an injunction, Microsoft can just go ahead and do the merger, right?
Yeah, they would have to either step to they have to step to the side or bring it to federal court. They have two choices. Yeah.
So it's kind of moot. So the whole thing kind of just fizzled away. Now, whether that was their intent or not, I don't know, right? Whether the pressures came in and said, hey, what are you doing? I don't know, right? Like, I understand, like, trying to change things to make things better, right? And I don't disagree that there's maybe a little too much, especially in the sort of social media arena. There's a little too much consolidation there, and that's fair, right? But this is not that case, right? They defined Sony and Nintendo as 2 monopolies now, and you're telling me that wait, that's a good thing for the industry, and a competitor's coming in and saying, hey, we're going to compete with that. You're saying no, they shouldn't do that. Like, it makes very little sense, right? Yeah. First, I don't necessarily agree that they are, but They just did it. They just said it, right? They both the CMA and the FTC have said Sony only competes with Xbox. Well, okay, Sony has the 70% market share, and those numbers aren't coming from Hargeet. They're coming from disclosures to the government.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, well, that's 70%. In the US, the standard is 60%. 60% is monopoly. It's de facto. Yeah. It's a monopoly.
Right.
So, okay, you've defined Nintendo as its own category. So it's a de facto monopoly because it's 100%. And you define Sony and Xbox as one category. And guess what? Now you've just defined that Sony's a monopoly. Well, what are you doing about it? Right. So, whatever. Right. So the FTC has just was posturing here, creating a bunch of crap. And it looks like it just fell flat. And so it's fizzled out. Let's hope the CMA and the EC, those decisions come through over the next month or two. They should be kind of wrapping up.
Right.
So hopefully that's done. And yeah, I think they'll give the FTC a couple of days. If you want these concessions, we'll be happy to sign it with you. Otherwise, we're just going to finish the deal. So this could wrap up pretty soon.
And that's the difference currently with the FTC situation versus the CMA and the EU Commission. Right now, Microsoft isn't allowed in the room unless there's a judge there for the FTC, as opposed to the sitting down with the CMA and the EU Commission, saying, okay, listen, we know this is not a monopoly. We know that we're not hurting competition, but we are willing to offer this. And again, I've said this before, and I think that maybe something else gets added to what they've already publicly said. Maybe they say, the CMA and the EU say, okay, listen, we're going to accept concessions, but we have one of our own, and because you're getting all this, you can't raise Game Pass for 3 years.
Yeah, and they have all that power today if they hadn't gone and sued, right?
Yeah.
All that power, because Microsoft wants to get the deal done. They wanted to try a piece, right? They wanted to do that.
Yeah.
Right? So they could have even had, hey, we want all of your QA developers to go under the union. Okay, right? That's a concession that they might be willing to take. Now they have zero leverage. They've taken away all their leverage because they sued. It was stupid, right? That we don't make deals. That's the dumbest thing you want.
I was actually quite taken aback when she said that. Yeah.
The whole point is make deals. You can get concessions. You can even say, hey, we want you to expand unions to other areas. Microsoft might have said, okay, right? Now they've taken away all that leverage, right? There's so much power they had if they said, we want to talk, instead of saying, no, we want to sue. Right.
It's funny, Archie, when you say that they had the chance to do, with the concessions, is that those are concessions that Microsoft was most likely going to implement anyways.
Yep.
But now they're going to be like, you know what? Let's pull that back. Because within reason.
Yep.
Obviously, unionizing the different departments, like for example the QA testers and stuff.
Yep.
That's going to happen no matter what. But there are other concessions that they would have backed off on.
Yep.
I mean, they would have implemented anyway. So, but now, why would they bother?
I mean, they reportedly offered PlayStation PS Plus. That's very unlikely to happen now. Like, if you don't need to do that, you would not do that. Like, that's. I mean, this has never been about COD anyway. It's always been about mobile gaming. Like,
yes,
it really has.
100%.
Yeah, exactly.
But now that they don't need to, they're not gonna. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Hargeet. This is the dumbest move. I've ever seen.
They had all the power if they didn't sue. All the power. Like, you want other things? Sure. It didn't even have to limit it to this. They could have said, hey, Microsoft, don't do these things. And they might have said, yeah, sure. Okay, fine. We won't do those things, right? But it could have limited, they've totally taken away all their power, right? But okay, whatever. I mean, that's their choice. But whatever. I don't understand the mindset of we're not going to make deals. I think that the best time to do that is at that table, negotiate.
Yep, 100%.
And say, here are the things that you can do for the consumers, right? So we're going to have you not do this or that, whatever. It didn't even have to be part of Xbox. It's Microsoft that's buying them. So they could have said anything about Microsoft. And if Microsoft's like, okay, fine, we'll just take that. 5 years of not doing something, fine, we'll just do that, right? Now they lost all that leverage. Like, I just don't understand why they're doing that. But whatever.
Again, it's gonna come back to hurt them. Steel Rain, my friend. Let me get you in here. But before I do, let me catch up on the super chats. Thanks so much for throwing all of this in here, as well as Risk It. Stuff Sean, who is the new channel member, drops a £2 super chat, and he says the FTC equals full-time, and I think it's Chalarians. I think that's how you pronounce it. CHARLATANS. I'm not sure what that is.
Oh,
or-
charlatans.
Charlatans. Well,
There
there
you
you go. I couldn't read. Thank you so much for that, brother. They are definitely full-time charlatans. Phaser Swag drops a £2 super chat and says, the CMA rarely accepts remedies. Would be surprising. I don't know so much about that. I can't say that I've heard that they don't accept remedies, but I think they're in the business of protecting the consumer. That's their job. And this deal doesn't hurt consumers. In fact, it makes gaming affordable leaps and bounds more than what Sony is currently doing with the way that they're doing business.
Right.
And Sony's the only one complaining, which is ridiculous. Highlander 001, who's been a channel member for 6 months, drops a $5 super chat and says the FTC is hoping the CMA or the EU will block the acquisition. I see the CMA and the EU approving the acquisition with few concessions. FTC will lose big time. Yeah, I absolutely agree there. Game Positive drops a $2 super chat and says, Happy New Year to all in the Prime Time community. Well, thank you so much for that, as well as being here, and thank you for the generosity. Steel Rain, let's get your opinion on this, brother. You've been here. You heard what Dutch had to say. You've heard what Hargeet has had to say. But we're interested to get what you have to say. Yeah. Again, we have a lot of information that came out of this. One of the biggest the funniest things is that the 20 minutes of the pre-trial was trying to get Microsoft back into the room because they kept getting disconnected, which of course everyone called foul. But it's pretty interesting when the federal judge says that we assume the FTC would make the decision to go to federal court if we wanted to front. Oh no, this is. I'm sorry. Microsoft is prepared. This is coming from Idle Sloth. Let me just make sure I get this correct. And it says Microsoft is prepared to go to federal court, and this is what Microsoft had to say. We assume the FTC would make the decision to go to federal court, and we want to front load that evidential period. And the termination date for the deal is July 18th, 2023, which the FTC thought that they might be able to, force Microsoft's hand to abandon this deal with Activision. That's not going to happen, brother. They showed their fangs. What are your thoughts?
From me, it's just amazing to me to see this craziness continue to play out, right? To see all of it unravel. It's like a big rubber band ball, and the rubber bands just keep popping off the more and more we continue to roll down this hill until it becomes a pebble of nonsense. And at this point, I don't know what all the FTC needs to see, or whatever the powers may be need to see to understand that there's literally nothing in retrospect that could go against this deal. Nothing that makes sense. Hargeet made good points about, again, just the monopoly side of it. I mean, you have to look at what's going to benefit your consumer base overall. And I know that, it's hard to see what that is going to be, especially in a industry like ours, where in the console market it's kind of reached its peak. More people are buying games, and it's growing, but it's kind of growing within itself. And that is why you start hearing the conversation about, hey, we need to reach these 3 billion gamers. Hey, well, you guys aren't enough. We need to look at doing other things, make live service games, such and so forth. So everything that Microsoft is presenting and has brought to the table at this point demonstrates their willingness to be the hero for the consumer, at least this far going into this generation, right? Microsoft has a lot that's working against themselves, especially behind the scenes. Not everybody's happy about Windows, regardless of how people feel about it, but they are the monopoly in that space too. But there are other options and other things that kind of come into question, which is why this has been thrown, why I understand at least why people look at it with the shaded lens that they do. But at the end of the day, FTC doesn't have a leg to stand on. We talked about a little bit behind the scenes. I think this is going to end up getting thrown now. I do think that this is going to end. We're going to end up finding out by the end of this month, if not beginning of next month, whether how deep this is going to actually go, or whether we're going to get it way earlier than anticipated. I'm on the fence that I think we're going to get things way earlier than we anticipate. We're not going to have to wait until the summer or an E3 to say, hey, we finally got them, we beat them. unless, and again, this is my fear, unless the industry is willing to admit that Sony is the lead horse, and you have to play the game their way. That's fair. To me as a consumer, and I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an attorney, I'm not none of those things. I can only take the educated consumer perspective. And for me, if Sony is the only person that could be the most known brand or be at the top of this food chain over here, and when other people tried to make defining industry decisions because they have to, because they were at a point where either they made changes or it wasn't going to be financially viable to continue to do things the way that Sony wants to do them, then what is competition? That's my outlook on it thus far. Again, FTC is it's going to be interesting to see how everything plays out. That's my kind of take on it thus far.
Yeah, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I do like the way that you have positioned the ridiculousness that is Sony. Their market leadership has. You ever heard the phrase "turning the head of the horse"? Where you want the horse to go, you turn the head, right? That's what Sony is right now. Sony is the market leader, where they turn they turn the industry the way that they want to turn it, and they have turned it to $70 games, $10 upgrade fees, as everyone Saga calls it, the a-hole tax for crossplay. They have raised their console $50, something that has never been done in gaming in the history of gaming, as far as we know it. So where they turn, the industry turns with them.
They
and
squeeze developers. Squeezing developers.
Thank you very much for that. Blackballing sites when they don't give their games a favorable review. This is market leadership abuse. And I think that there are a lot of people looking to see maybe they go down on a knee. And ultimately, what's going to happen is Sony has gotten fat sitting on their throne, like most kings and emperors do, right? They sit there and they eat and they get really fat. And this is why there's been no difference in the way that they make games, no way they sell games. Everything has got to be the Sony way or the highway. And I think all of that's about to come to an end. But let me bring in the Mag here. Mag, you're shaking your head here. Again, we all said that this lawsuit was frivolous. A lot of us called it ridiculous. I've called it a taxpayer's worst nightmare, because they're basically throwing money out the window for no reason.
When isn't the government?
Yeah, it's true. But for this particular thing, I would be the first one to call foul if there was something illegal about the deal. There's nothing illegal about this deal. We all know that. When you hear, mind you, this is just the first salvo, and was expected to be many shots fired until this deal is ultimately either blocked or done. What are your thoughts on the response from the FTC proper versus what they said on the 8th when Lena Khan says we're not in the business of making deals?
Yeah, well, you know what? We all saw this. We all knew this was going to happen. We all knew that this was going to be the outcome. It was just a matter of time, because if a layman, and when I mean by layman, I just mean someone who's not in the legal practice particular, is that you can already see holes in this, and this is not our field of expertise. And if you can see that as a normal, as a person who's outside of the legal world, then how the hell did you ever think it was ever going to stand up in court?
That's a great point, dude. Great point.
We knew it was a waste of time from the beginning, or at least anybody with half a brain. And then the other thing is that you can actually see that this was a complete waste of time. This is a complete waste of taxpayer dollars. This is a complete waste of basically, it's all it is political posturing. It's something that we've all said before. Now, here's the thing. No concessions are necessary. No concessions are going to happen, as Hargeet was talking about earlier. Okay, there are no grounds, and there is no basis for it. They're going to be laughed out of court. They're going to be quietly told to back off. Okay, whether that comes from the POTUS himself or whether that comes from someone else, they're just going to say, "Listen, back off. You're being stupid now. You're making us look dumb. We're losing a position of power. And when you lose, and when you start losing integrity in the public and the PR, you start losing your position of power. You do not want to give that up, especially after going through what they just went through. Okay, with the midterm elections. This is not the time to start farting around if you're looking to get reelected in 2024, which at this, I won't get into that. But anyways, the point is that, Microsoft at this point does not have to negotiate with terrorists because they have the upper hand. Okay, so you look at that, like I say, in the political posturing. Now, the thing is that someone who's always, like what I see that has been happening is that this is someone, okay, Lena Khan specifically, punching way above her weight class. And the thing is, I'm not taking away anything against her intelligence. Obviously, she didn't get there by fluke. Okay, she has highly educated woman.
No, she's very educated. Yes,
yeah, she's a highly educated woman. She knows exactly what she's doing, and she's put in a position there for a specific reason. However, you are punching way above your weight class, and in the end, this is a resemblance to me of an incredibly misguided population of younger people who think that you could just change a law or change something to fit a narrative or an ideal. I'm sorry to inform you that the old man in the room has to tell you that's not how the world works. The thing is, at the end of the day, you're trying to change a law that, change or bend laws are never going to happen unless it's making somebody money. Okay, and this is not going to make, and then blocking something like this is not going to make anybody money. They are look at the situation. You guys have to see how deep this web goes from not just the government. This goes down to the investors. Right. Okay, and when you've got investors involved putting up hundreds of millions of dollars, they start putting pressure on Congress. Okay, because they're the movers and shakers of this world, not the government. The government's not, they're just a utility. They're just a tool in order to make the money move from one place to the other and preferably into their pockets, right? That's how the government works. And another thing about the government is it's a lack of communication. These departments are not speaking to each other. They're not doing any of that. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't benefit them personally, then it's not going to be, the laws are not going to bend and they're not going to change. That is the reality of this world. If you don't believe me, go move up in the corporate chain and then come back and call the mag and ask me how it actually works. Because I'm at the top of that food chain and I know exactly how it works. Now, here's the other thing. You have a group of people now who are extremely inexperienced with this, clearly are not jaded enough to understand the corporate structure of the government. And now what are you doing, guys? You are facing a unified, well-versed, well-educated veteran team in Microsoft who are used to this kind of stuff. You are facing them who have full communication with each other, have the best legal teams in the world. Okay? Microsoft is standing outside of the bar calling you out, and all of a sudden now you're gun shy. The reason why is because you have been put, where was your previous conviction? Where was the conviction you had a month ago? You're starting to see that it's starting to fall apart. Right. And at the end of the day, they're going to be made to look like fools. And I hate to say it, but it will happen. She will be I said it in the chat, in our private chat. I said she is going to get fired or she's going to get moved quietly out of position. Okay. Because the next government that comes in is going to fire her. That is 100% going to happen. That's what I see, because I don't think the next government is going to be the government you have in there now. Okay. And they're going to fire her. Because the thing is, at the end of the day, like I said, you start putting up roadblocks for investment. That's not a good thing for these.
It's funny. We don't. I mean, we're not financial analysts here, right? But we can talk broadly, right? In layman terms, so to speak. And what she is looking to do potentially is stifle investment.
Yeah, are you out of your mind?
Yeah, but you know what? Again, folks. One of the things I love doing on this show is talking about the human element in gaming. I talked about it with how developers feel when they read about a game that's not even out being destroyed by knuckleheads, right? They get hurt. Now, obviously, they're paraprofessionals and they wipe it off and they keep developing their game. But it is hurtful. Well, when you look at what's happening here, yes, Call of Duty, yes, mobile from Microsoft. We're not getting a dime from that, folks, right? if you want to be real here, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about what Microsoft is doing for someone like me, right? Like, I'm a retired guy. I was fortunate enough to spend 21 years as a New York City police officer, and I never got hurt enough to get that I was, in a box. I did get hurt enough where I had to have spinal cord reconstruction, and it cost me my career after 21 years. So I retired. It's not a problem. I'm still doing my thing, but I'm retired. I have a pension. Now my pension is great. My medical is great. My dental is great. Glasses are great. I got no complaints. But there are limited funds. You have to make decisions. And if every game that I had to buy was $70, well, there are a lot of games I wasn't going to buy. But Xbox Game Pass, which is $15 a month, that gives me ridiculous amount of games, so much that my backlog is now 2 years old, and on top of everything that was in there before it. And that's just me. But what about bringing in unions for the first time in gaming history? Do you understand the ramifications of this? And it's official. The first union has been formed, folks. This is a big part of the deal. And the fact that the FTC completely snubbed the nose of two things that they're supposed to protect: consumers, which is people like me, and the workers, which they used as the front standing, where we're worried about the workers. And the two largest unions in the entire country, one of which has 1.2, I think it's 12.5 million members. That is the big one. And the CWA is like just under a million, I think like 800,000. Think about that for a second. They have backed this deal because for the first time in gaming history, union jobs are going to be brought into the conversation. I had a union job, so I understand how important it is to have someone that has your back. I think the fact that, again, I said it before, this lawsuit is frivolous, it's ridiculous.
Holy crap.
I'm going to save everyone for last because he has a timeline that he put in the DM that is like straight up. Now I know we made fun of him with the tinfoil stuff originally, but
no, I'm not.
He's onto something, but let's risk it. Let's get your opinion on this, brother. This is the first pretrial of what was expected to be a long, drawn-out process, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case based on what was said. What are your thoughts? Do you think that this gets done by April?
Well, I hope so, but I'm not going to make calls on when I think it's going to get done because I've been wrong twice. But look, here's the thing. I think what happened here, and I think it's really, really clear, their case fell apart the day they went to court. Like literally the day EU came out and said, no, we didn't say that. That's not what happened. And then things just started to unravel. Like every single point they made in their filings unraveled. They even made points in that filing that has nothing to do with competition. Like literally nothing to do with competition, not in their purview, things that they shouldn't be dealing with. And one point I wanted to make is what is competition for consumers? For us, it's options. Right?
Yeah. 100%.
The more options you have, the more competition there is. And what has Microsoft been forcing down people's throats even? Options. You've got options to play anywhere you want, buy the game, sign up to a subscription, buy a console, don't buy a console, buy the top of the line console, buy a Series S console. Like you have just got options coming out of your, and excuse the language, ass when it comes to Microsoft. So like that's competition in of itself. You're talking about a market leader that has just done so many egregious things, especially this generation. A company that used to tout themselves as for the players, which frankly has just become a laughable joke in this last couple
100%.
of years.
Yeah.
But one thing that you mentioned there was about developers. This is something that I kind of am pretty interested in, and that angle of things. And I came across something earlier a couple of days ago. And it was an article by TweetTown about Square Enix and their global aspirations being hindered by the fact that they are constantly signing exclusivity deals with Sony. Now, I don't want to misquote this. So what I'll put this, the small quote is, Sony has significant power when negotiating deals with third-party partners, and they do. They have a ridiculous amount of power. And what is happening with this, with FTC fighting this deal, my exact words were this: in your effort to enforce ideological beliefs, you are complicit in the very thing you have sworn to eradicate. They are literally going against their own ideology by supporting the market leader. Simply because in their purview, they're looking at Microsoft as a whole company. Okay. And that's fine to do. But you can't do that when it comes to gaming because the whole company isn't in gaming. The whole company doesn't do gaming. This part of Microsoft does gaming, and it's in third place. And even with this deal going through, it is still in third place. Yeah. Like, this is an apps. Honestly, I try to stay out of American politics as much as I possibly can. Unfortunately, this has kind of dragged me into it a little bit, but this is an absolutely egregious waste of money. And not just the Microsoft deal, her attitude towards how she has approached her job has been just like a ridiculous public misstep after public misstep. Like, it's worse than Xbox's last generation. Sorry, guys. In the chat.
Ouch.
But like, it's like losing 11 cases that you knew you were going to lose, but you took them all the way. And as Hargeet so succinctly put, losing every little tiny bit of leverage you have. And not only that, you have pissed off Microsoft. Like, now they're pissed. They're like, all right, we tried. Now we're going to go to war. And they're not going to back down. They're going to dig their heels in. I'm sure that they will make some concessions if FTC comes in, but you turned them away. They walked into your office, hand on heart, what can we do to make this right? And you didn't even listen. Like, this is just ridiculous from FTC. And
I've never seen business done like that before, ever.
No, there's always a talk. Even if, and when you're talking in the background, you're stabbing them in the back. You at least talk, so you got the time to do that. Like, you can gather stuff together. It's like, oh, this is what they're offering, and this is what we could use against them. They didn't even smartly do that. Like, it's absolutely. I mean, I don't do a lot of business, but the business I have done has been like that. And look, Punty in the chat said a few things about Sony, and I just want to kind of respond to that. Look, dude, you guys cannot blame Sony for this, and Sony won this battle. Like, don't get that twisted. This is business.
Yes,
and Sony knew that they could drag this out. They could see the landscape, and they knew that they would just throw everything at it and they would be able to drag this out, which is what they wanted, because at the end of the day, they are behind the 8 ball. They don't have their gas games ready. They're working on 12 gas games. They need to get those out the door before this deal goes through, because otherwise they are well behind the 8 ball now.
It's a delay tactic.
Now they're in a position where they probably won't be able to catch up for years. If they could delay this and at least get some of these games to the point where they're nearly ready to go out the door, they've gained ground. That's a lot of ground to gain.
Don't they now have 10 years with COD to sort of inoculate them from that, to build those games out?
No, they don't, because they didn't sign it.
Yeah, and I don't know that to your point, I don't know that the regulators out in Europe are going to force a 10-year deal, right? Because that's an obscene amount of time.
It's never been done in history of business. Have you ever seen?
So, I mean, they might say 3 years, 5 years, right? And it's on Microsoft that they're like, we'll give 10 years, right? But that's on them.
I think Microsoft will give 10 years because they already offered it to Nintendo. And I think that's just going to be the
that's a good point.
Why I think you might be right. I think you might be right because this is probably not going to be their last acquisition, and so to show regulators in the future that they're willing to honor their word, even though that they have been scorned, then they probably will. Spider-Man in the chat, make no mistake, this is a win for Sony. I'm sorry if you don't like to hear it, but they were smart.
To your point, Riskit, that's exactly what they should have done. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't begrudge them doing what they did.
They
Sony
got
absolutely
Microsoft to offer them COD and PS Plus. I'm not saying that offer will stand, but that's a W. However way you look, you couldn't stop the deal. But if you get offers, if you get this 10-year guarantee, which again, it will put
it in PS Plus, right? Now, there's the flip side of this, right? The assumption is that Sony will actually come to the table and take a 10-year deal. We don't know that they will, right? So we'll see. Right?
Oh, but you watch Winds of Change. This is the Winds of Change with what's happening now with the FTC. I guarantee you Sony's watching this and they'll be knocking on the door, like going, hey, what is on the table? what's on the table. They might wait to hear what concessions get offered into the FTC, and then they'll be knocking on the door saying, "Hey, what's on offer?" with tail between legs. But this again, like, look, man, I am the biggest Xbox fan in the world, but like, I can see things, and this is smart from Sony. It's exactly what I would have done. They made it as difficult as they could for Microsoft, and I don't think they ever thought they would block this deal, but they bought time. They bought a lot of time.
So the interesting thing with this, though, is can Sony now buy anything? Because if they've been declared by the UK and the US as a monopoly, are they going to be allowed to buy anybody after this?
That's a great question.
And they might do the what's it called? What the hell's a Chinese company? Tencent. They might do the Tencent route and start investing. You know what I mean? 4% here, 5% here, 6% here. But with that 4%, or the 5%, or 3%, all marketing deals moving forward for the next 5 years go to Sony. You know what I'm saying? So that
potentially
they could do something like that, where they on the back end they could still make a bit of their investment back, but at the same time, they could skirt around the monopoly deal. Like, for example, that's what Tencent has been doing for years, to the point where the Chinese government had to get involved and say, "Yo, can you guys calm down over there before people start putting eyes on us?" Right? So that's exactly what they did.
Yeah.
And the thing is with Sony as well, like, no one, it's ridiculous that it's got to this point. Regulators haven't even stepped in on Sony. I just don't think it's been on the radar. I think this deal has put gaming on the radar, and I wonder what will happen after the deal, whether regulators will step in and start taking more of an interest in gaming, because Sony should never have the amount of power that it's had. It should never have the lean on developers it's had. It should never have been able to, like, go, "Hey, we're doing $70 games," and everyone follow. And you're right, it is the horse head, and everyone will follow what they do. I mean, Christ, Microsoft has got $70 games now, and Sony did that. And I don't care if 2K or EA did it first. Sony's the one that solidified it and made it legit, and that's why we're doing it now. And Sony, no console platform maker should have that power, and they do, and it's wrong. And at the end of the day, that's the basis of this case, and I think that's why it'll go through when they look at the history. It's as simple as that.
Can I ask a quick question to the panel, see if anybody is on the same wavelength as me with this one? This might be a little bit more conspiratorial. However, is there
that's right up everyone's saga.
I know. I'm waiting for him to unmute. Is there a possibility that I'm talking in the higher ups. I'm talking about, that chestnut wood table where they got the round, the round table where they got the chairs around where the big guys sit at. I wonder if they're getting a little nervous with the idea that this Activision, this ABK deal goes through and the unions start coming in, that's going to start affecting them with their studios, where they're like, "Oh crap!" So
you're talking about the Court of Owls is basically what you're saying. They're starting to get nervous.
They're starting to get a little nervous that maybe, like, "Oh crap!" They're all starting. As soon as ABK starts unionized,
then we would see somebody in that realm make an objection, right? So far, almost all of the major publishers have said no problem, including Nintendo, right? Have said no problem, right? We don't have any issue with this.
Okay, I'm just posing the question. Like I'm saying, you know, where Riskett was talking about the specific, the mistreatment of the staff, of certain developers, of the staff, of the people, of the crunch, the stories you've heard, the squeeze that we've all heard about.
That's the thing that keeps ABK running right now, right? Because the employees are staying because they're going to become Microsoft employees.
Exactly. They're waiting for this. Yes.
Exactly, right? That is part and parcel of it. Otherwise, ABK will be in big trouble because those employees are going to say bye-bye.
Well, there's that. There's also when all that sort of came out and there was litigation and people were complaining and mishandling of harassment complaints and all that, they dropped 6%. Like, it's not a small amount of money. 6% is a huge amount of money. Right. And then when Microsoft announced the buyout, I think they bumped up they went over and above that 6%, and Sony dropped something stupid like 20%. Right. Now, if this deal doesn't go, this is the other thing that the FTC should be looking at if they're not looking at it. What happens if it doesn't go through? Not only do you lose probably a lot of your employee base experience and all that, probably ABK will not pivot from what they've tried to do to fix this problem, which is sell off the company. Right. Now, there's no one that can buy ABK. Like, in its entirety, there's no one that either has the money or will be allowed. As simple as that. Tencent won't be allowed, and I don't see Embracer being allowed to do it either. So what's the options for ABK?
Well, Embracer is so small. It would be Apple, but that would be a huge thing. Like, so that's a big fight that's coming at some point, right? Apple owns the most profitable gaming and a market period. Right?
Yeah, people
iOS makes
discount Apple
so much
Arcade.
money.
It's freaking
and
huge.
they
Don't they
have
have over
Apple
100
Arcade.
million subscribers?
Over 100 million subscribers
There you
for
go.
Apple Arcade, and they print money off of other people's games. They make no games. They print money off of other people's games and make 11, 12, 15 billion in profit. Pure profit.
But, so do you know how they could sell it to Apple and get away with it? They could sell IPs. They could sell IPs. They could sell studios. And I think that's likely what ABK will do is they'll strip down and sell off a lot of their company piecemeal.
Yep.
That's bad for gaming, only because of the uncertainty. Shit, they might sell it to, I don't know, like they might sell something to Sony and Sony makes a great game out of it, and that's good for gaming. They might sell it to Apple and Apple makes something great out of it, and that's good for gaming.
Possible, exactly. And King would be a potential good sell to them, right? Because they have
they got to be careful. See,
publisher.
We're also missing something here. Is that like look at what's happening with Disney and Apple right now? For anybody in the know in the Hollywood side of things. What's happening now is that Disney's looking to offset some of their losses because of for multiple reasons. They're looking to move out some of their things, but they know that Apple can't swoop in there and just take Disney. That's not going to happen. What they are doing though, they're looking to offshoot ESPN. They're looking to move off, if you can believe it. They're looking to move off the land that Disney is on in Florida specifically, not California.
Crazy. Yeah.
Right. So they're looking at the land so Apple might be purchasing the land in Disney World, and then of course ESPN, and that's a start because then there's even a rumor now. I've heard a rumor anyway that Pixar is next, right? Because they're going to go smaller and be able to do that because it can stay under the radar. What I'm saying, the reason why I'm saying is that this directly, applies to exactly what we're talking about with ABK. If it weren't to go through, they would have to do the same thing too. They would have to basically offshoot some of these different, smaller to start with. And then sort of move along, and then just like Riskit was saying and Hargeet, where you start looking at the IP specifically and then the developer specifically, right? As opposed to what's happening now, where they're just like, let's take the whole damn pie instead of a piece of it, right? So that, which of course, as we know, brings more eyes to the table, right? So, that's the other option. It's not going to happen. It's never going to get to that point.
No,
but
listen. Let's get Everborn Saga into the conversation. He's been chomping at the bit. He has a great timeline. But real quick, shout out to Zane Wickman in the chat. He says, I worked in the industry from 98 to 2010. The employees, us, were slave labor. Sony's methods are anti-union.
There you go. And that's what I was talking about. That's what I was saying, that maybe they're fearful of this. This is going to be a trend that will affect the entire industry. And I think they're scared of that change.
Yeah. Absolutely. So
and we know
Saga.
we know Sony's sorry to interrupt. We know that Sony has been accused of crunch many times, Naughty Dog especially. And if it's created like great games, but this is probably something that Sony definitely does not want. We know their headquarters SIE's in America, so they're going to have to unionize as well. If this happens, that could be involved as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think you're onto something because that's right. They did move couple of years ago from Japan into America as their main headquarters. So go figure. Everborn Saga, are you there, sir?
Of course I am.
Well, let's go, brother. Let's get this timeline. Let's get the gist of what you had to say when we were talking on the phone today regarding the pre-trial event happening yesterday.
Yes, I'm going to talk about that, but I just, for context, for anybody listening, there's a few things that I wanted to chime in on. Firstly, with the whole union thing, I want to see, and these 300 QA workers, those are great. What I'm looking to see is if the developers will sign on. And I know there are a lot of people that try to poo-poo the QA workers, like, oh, it doesn't matter that these workers are now, vying for collective bargaining rights. Mm-hmm. But I do think the industry relies heavily on contract workers and hourly workers. So like when your project is done, what do you do for work? And I think what I'm looking to see is if these 300 QA workers from ZeniMax, are they a canary in the coal mine, or are they a useful tool to convince regulators that the deal should go through? And my thinking on it, I'm optimistic on it in that, and not because I think Microsoft is doing something altruistic, because in fact, no company that is not designated a nonprofit company has altruistic intentions, right? They do it. It's transactional, right? It's if this, then that. So if as a result of Microsoft wanting to close this deal, they allow unions, I think that's a net positive, and I'm in favor of it in that sense. But I'm not looking at, for-profit Microsoft to save anybody. All right, that's out of the way. Now, I think this deal is done and closed by April, right? And I'll tell you why. In the next week or two, the CMA is going to come back with their provisional findings from their phase 2 investigation, right? Once that happens, Microsoft will have a chance to alleviate their concerns and make offers for concessions if required based on their findings, right? Now, Microsoft will probably take about 2 weeks to come back to them if they haven't already worked that out, because I think they know where it's heading because they've been talking to them this whole time. And if you look at the documentation that the CMA has released, apart from Sony, everything they have released from market participants and from the public, the two entities that they're supposed to serve, right? Market participants for competition and the public, they're all in favor of it, right?
Right.
I don't think the CMA released that for no reason. I think that is an indication of which way that they are going to lean, meaning they are going to allow this deal to go through. Maybe Microsoft has to sweeten the pot by saying, listen, you've done your investigation, you had the numbers. Now that you see the numbers, you see this going to go through, and we're offering 10 years, that goes through. I think that then the EU comes around, and they have until April 11th, but they can choose earlier if Microsoft makes them an offer. And I think Microsoft is waiting to make them an offer until they see if they need to give the CMA anything. Right? So once they know what they have to give the CMA, they're going to offer the same to the EU. And the EU is likely going to take that. And now we're sometime in March. But all the while, you're going to get the other jurisdictions making their decision. So China is going to make their decision. New Zealand is going to make their decision. Risk It for the Biscuit is going to go over to the regulators in Australia and tell them to hurry up, right? And then those will come in sometime between the beginning and the end of March. And then the only one left will be the FTC. Microsoft will go to the FTC and say, here, this is what we're offering you. And I do think that at this stage, the FTC accepts. Maybe they add one more thing, and the FTC gets to walk away saying, look, we twisted big tech's arm. Nothing is going to get past us, even though Microsoft offers them the same thing that they're offering everyone else. And the reason, apparently I'm D-Batch. And also I've heard that I say counsel from Wade Johnson one. Anyway, besides the point. I think we are done by April 15th, right? I think mid-April, this is all signed away with. And even if it is not, right? And there's one thing I did want to talk about in all the reporting. Microsoft is going to close in order to expedite this process. But if you listened to if you actually listen, and Destin Legary posted the audio, right? Because everyone, MLex and everybody else, and TweetTown, they're giving you their approximation of what was said. If you go to Destin's channel after this, you can see that he posted the audio so you can hear what they said. What they actually said, Microsoft lawyers said, if we receive these, we haven't been in substantial talks only because we're waiting for the UK and EU to see what we have to offer them. We are going to bring it back and we will move to close, but we fully expect the FTC to sue in federal court to try to stop us if we try to close it. So it's not so much that they have no, I know they said that we have no intention at this time, but the little piece that people leave out when they take that quote is they said, that's because there's no need to at this moment, right? That's the piece they leave out. The FTC lawyer said the closing is not imminent, but they could go to court if they needed to. So it's not that they're completely not going or have no interest to go. It's just no point right now because the deal can't close without the CMA or the EC approving it. That being said, the real point here that everyone has talked about is that FTC counsel specifically said, right? They said that they have been directed by the head of the FTC, that would be Lena Khan in this case, right? To engage in good faith negotiations for a settlement. And they're open to closing before litigation or during or any time during litigation. So this does not have to be dragged out. They have both agreed to an expedited timeline, right? And this is the thing that we were all talking about August, right? August is nothing to look at. The judge has agreed because the FTC and Microsoft have talked and they both said, we want to do this so we can get it done before the deadline. Everyone is on the same page of an expedited headline. So don't worry about the August 2nd date. Don't worry about, closing over the deal and the FTC doing that. They're going to work it out. And really, the crux of this whole thing, as I've said this whole time, is going to be on the CMA. And it seems like the CMA is leaning in the right direction. But whatever concessions the CMA needs, those same concessions will be offered to the EC, and whatever that is offered to the CMA and the EC will be offered to the FTC, and this thing will close, I think, in time for us to get Diablo 4 in Game Pass when it launches, day and date. Now, the question that I
That's a big call. That's a big call.
I'm saying it. I guarantee it. I'll put money on this one.
Let's lay it on the table. It's on the table.
But it is on the table. No, the other thing that I wonder is what concessions do we think the CMA is going to require? Because I think Microsoft agrees to anything that is not structural. And structural means they're going to have to break off a piece of it.
I don't think that's going to happen, though, because it's not necessary to do so. No, they're not going to have to, like what happened with Disney when they acquired Fox. They had to sell a bunch of pieces off. I don't think that's necessary for this deal at all.
Yeah, because so the moral of the story, folks, is the FTC may still file to block it. But
what you have to remember with the CMA is the last communication that we've had publicly from the CMA
is saying that the public is overwhelmingly in favor, right?
Exactly.
And that's the way I think they're going to lean, right? Mm-hmm. So ultimately, the other big point here, it is not that they have no intention of filing right now. That's not the big news. There's no reason for the FTC to file in federal court right now. It is not that Microsoft is going to close over once they have all the other approvals, because Microsoft says we expect the FTC to sue, and the FTC says we don't need to do that right now, but if the situation should arise, we might, right? All of that is a bargaining tactic. The important point here is that the judge has agreed to expedite this whole process, and the FTC has been the lawyer at the FTC has been authorized to negotiate with Microsoft, which that was not the case, at least by everything they were saying before. So I think this is going to get resolved amicably, and everybody walks away looking like they got a win, and Microsoft gets to continue doing what they want to do, potentially acquiring more people in the future. This is the other knock-on effect, and I think this is interesting, and I don't want to bring this up at the end, but you guys can talk about it later after we go off the air. What does this kick off when this deal inevitably goes through? I think this kicks off a round of consolidation that's going to be interesting, and I think that Sony does not take this lying down. And I know there's only so much they can do, right? Because they don't have Microsoft money, but I do think Sony has strategic targets that they're going to want to move on. And I think the entire industry is in a holding pattern on acquisitions to see how this goes through. If this goes through, that's the green light for everybody to start making moves. So I expect and Sony knows how to make news, right? Don't sleep on them, right? So start thinking about what things Sony could do that may end up hurting some people's feelings. And I don't think it's Square Enix. Square Enix is bleeding money. I don't think Sony wants to take that on. I think Sony's going to do something more interesting.
I'm gonna second that. Square Enix is buying the cow to get the milk. They're already getting the milk. They don't need to. Yeah. And at this point, and even after that deal goes through, I think PlayStation can lean on Square Enix to get what they want out of them anyway. So I don't see Square Enix
Xbox buys them.
That would be the funny thing. But I don't think anybody wants to buy. I don't think Square Enix wants to buy Square Enix, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, Square Enix is looking to be bought.
So
they're looking to be bought, and they could use somebody like Microsoft to fund them. So.
It would be pretty hilarious if that was the Japanese public that Microsoft went after, and that would really.
I mean, they did before, right? They were literally this close to buying them. They were this close to buying them.
Can I throw something just into the conversation here? It's a little bit left field, but if you don't mind, Boom, if that's cool. Sure. Punty I've kind of been having a back and forth conversation with Punty in the chat there. And he said that Microsoft or Xbox would not have behaved like this were the shoe on the other foot. And what I said to him was that Microsoft can't behave like Sony did. They can't do it. And he asked me why. And so Punty, and if you guys disagree,
because they're 20 times the size of Sony. You can't make those bully moves. Yeah. Microsoft has been since 1999. This is 20 years now when they tried to get broken up. And they actually did the FTC at that time, or the DOJ at that time, was successful. They got an order that said Microsoft had to be broken up, but then Microsoft appealed it and it ended up not happening. But they did have their hands tied, and this is what led to Google entering the market in the way they have, which probably led to Facebook and all these other things. So it's not necessarily bad, but Microsoft has been skating through regulators because they actually have a monopoly in Windows. They actually have a monopoly in and monopolies aren't illegal. It's only when you misuse your monopoly power, right? And a lot of people don't really understand that, but then they'll go and pay like a Con Ed bill. But Boom, you're from New York, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I sure do.
So the thing is, it's Microsoft cannot be as aggressive as we may want them to be.
And I don't think they would want to be either, right? Because look, if they play like Amazon, then they become like the bad person from the government perspective, from the union perspective. It's like for everybody's perspective, right? So they want to try to play nice. That's what they've been trying to do. So I think you're perfectly. That's exactly right. They can't do it. They just can't, right? People want them to act the way Sony does.
You can't be like that. Yeah,
they can't. They can't go strong arm because they will get called out.
And they've already got enough eyes on them, and the optics would be bad. And not only that, Microsoft are protecting their future by behaving the way that they behave. I mean, you look at the filings, you look at the responses from Microsoft, and then look at the responses from ABK.
I love the
ABK responded. They responded like that because they could. Exactly. Microsoft did not respond the way that we all wanted them to because they can't. They got to think of the future. They got to think of what's next.
You know what that reminds me of? You guys know Key and Peele, where they had Barack Obama and Luther, the anger translation, the anger translator. Like ABK is Luther to Microsoft's Obama, right? So and this is the thing, though. My question is, does that fire from ABK continue once they're a part of Microsoft?
No, it can't. If they're seen as a Microsoft subsidiary, it can't. They cannot, and it wouldn't be ABK's lawyers doing that job. That's
Right, that'd be
Microsoft's lawyers
Microsoft
doing
Yeah,
that
it would be
job,
Microsoft having a. But listen,
One last thing I want to
so-
say before we end this thing, Boom. The other thing is Microsoft, and this is under Satya Nadella. This is his edict, right?
Mhm.
He wants to use the carrot instead of the stick.
Yep.
Now, what does that mean? It means you catch more flies with honey than vinegar.
Does it mean that you offer games and don't deliver them?
I'm sorry?
I said, does it mean that you offer games and don't deliver them?
Don't worry about that. 2023 is when it comes in. No, but the point that I'm making is what their strategy is not to behave like Sony, whereas you get the market share and then you force everybody to do what you want. You make it attractive enough for everyone to want to come to you, right?
You set open standards, let other people also play with whatever you're doing, right? So that way it's open to everybody to do whatever they want, right? So, and that's been Microsoft's strategy, right? Whatever they create, hey, you can use it too. Come and take our technology and use it for your stuff. We're happy to have you on our systems, our servers, our Azure, or whatever. Right? That's what they do.
well, look, I think that's the right way to be. Honestly,
Yeah.
I think that inviting
That's Microsoft.
they push having more people be a part of them rather than pushing. They're not into the exclusivity thing. They're inclusive. That's why I really like Microsoft, is because of what they push. Real quick, we're going to get to the outros. Sony's CES wrapped up with Jim Ryan. He ends
30
the
million.
gaming. Yeah. He 30 million consoles have been sold for the
Yep,
PlayStation
30
5, which
million.
is huge. And he ends the gaming segment with titles to look forward to later in the year for 2023. And what he put out there was Hogwarts, Final Fantasy 16, and the only first party was Spider-Man 2.
Yep.
Sorry.
That's what he ended the
Ask
show
this
with.
Celebrate
boom.
also.
For now, I just want to say for now.
Yeah.
They're still playing this game.
Yeah.
Remember,
So
they still need ammo to control the narrative when the deal inevitably goes
Yes.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
100%.
They are going
Yep.
to show us many things because the whole industry is going to be talking about Sony is fucked. Sorry for the language. But they're going to say Sony's effed, and then Sony is going to be right there with the bullets in the
Yeah,
chamber
exactly.
to say, oh, yeah?
Boom.
You know what the new
Boom.
narrative
Boom.
is going to be, and I'll be out there on Twitter just to wind people up. PlayStation got no games.
Yeah, I don't think
Love
that's
it.
going to
That's
happen,
good
but
stuff.
we'll
Listen, well, it's only time it's going to tell, but this has been a solid 2 hours of great talk with great guests. Great 450 plus people showed up today. Let's get to the outros. Steel Rain, sell your brand, brother. It's not 1K in 2023.
No.
It's 3K,
Yes,
brother.
yes,
So let's
yes.
talk about it. You guys are 700 give or take subs. You need 300 to get you to the 1K. I told you, and I told Pong, I'm gonna throw both these grown men on my back, and I'm gonna walk you across the finish line because that's what Boom does. Talk about it. Where can people check out Living Split Screen? Saturday mornings, Eastern Standard Time at 10 a.m. You Pong Soul 4-hour shows. Talk about it, brother. Sell your brand.
Yeah, Boom, man. It was a beautiful show, man. We had Mag that dropped in here. I saw he had to drop out and everything. So hopefully we can get a little bit of his outro. Please go follow the Mag, amazing guy, especially on Twitter, man. But other than that, Boom, it's always greatly appreciated when you ask me to be on. And again, you've handed me the key to the back door. And anytime I can come in and make a sandwich and sit down at the table within the kingdom of Boom, I'm forever grateful for that. So, but like Boom mentioned, I am one of the hosts for a non-console-centric platform known as Living Split Screen. Talk about everything going on with the gaming industry with a lot of personal flair. Again, like I started the show, live, raw, and uncut opinions, taking that RTS approach. Again, that's pulling yourself out of the world, looking at the darker crevices of the map, pulling those resources together so we could build up that foundation to reach those 3 billion potential gamers that Phil Spencer always talks about. And yeah, I mean, we go 4 hours strong. It's never intentional. but for whatever reason, it works between me and Pong. And yeah, the road is on 3K. Hopefully we can hit that again. It's all about consistency, so and more content. So that's the biggest piece. I am grateful for all the gentlemen here, guys. You are amazing people within the community. As we continue to build out, guys, continue just being yourself. I can't stress that enough to anybody out there. Know what you stand for, not only as a gamer, but as an individual, and feel free to express your opinions.
Yeah,
That's me.
Absolutely. Hargeet Chani, brother, talk about Game On Daily, which right now as we speak, there's some source videos being taped. I saw some of the pre-production stuff. I know I saw a conversation talk about make sure you feed the staff, and he's like, yeah, of course we feed the staff. We give them sauce.
Of course. Yeah, so GameOnDaily.com and YouTube.com/GameOnDaily. Yeah, look forward to the next sauce video. I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I tried to get Gaz on. He said, listen, I can't, boom, we're taping the next source video. I said, okay, no problem. We'll see you next
time. Guy's
time.
always doing stuff, man. It's just crazy. So, yeah.
Well, listen, Hargeet, glad to have you here tonight. Glad to have you a part of the panel each and every week. Love the knowledge that you bring. Sorry you had to go back to work and not be retired like Boomstick over here. But I'm not technically retired because I do 5 live streams per week. So I'm not really retired, but great to have you here. Risk it for the biscuit, brother. Sell your brand. Talk about the Xbox Infinite podcast on Friday evenings. And like I said, I know I talked with Umbra, who's in the chat right now. I know you guys are going through a legal battles because, you use his name and it's Infinite Umbra and it's Xbox Infinite podcast. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, hopefully you guys can come to some sort of deal.
Yeah, he never had that name. He stole it from us, and that's the ongoing battle. Yeah, well, look, we go live 7 p.m. EST on Fridays. Come check us out. Umbra, myself, Doom Cutie, Jedi Knight Peter. We just usually chop up whatever's going through the week. We are Xbox centric. However, we do talk about absolutely everything. And look, if you see me on Twitter, that's just me winding up the other side. I love doing that, so don't take that too seriously.
You have 2 big guests this week, brother. Talk about it.
We do.
Yeah.
We have KY Bob and we got J-Rock coming through as well.
Nice.
That's been a long time in the making. J-Rock's a hard man to get a hold of. I definitely tell you that. So yeah, head over this Friday and check us out. And I'll leave a link in the chat there. And boom, thanks for having me on the show. It's been awesome talking to all you guys and talking about this. I love it. I mean, everyone says they're getting sick of this subject, but I love it, man. It's
fascinating to me because it is the biggest. I mean, again, for someone like myself, I've been gaming since 1978. I'm very, very privileged, folks, to have seen games go from sticks and dots to nearly lifelike, not being able to tell the difference. So I'm incredibly fortunate. And in regards to the ABK deal, it's not because I'm an ex-bot. I look at this from the consumer's point of view, and I look at this from the lens of someone who had a union protecting me. So yes, ABK, I understand Call of Duty and all of the studios, and all of that is very interesting to me as a gamer. But as a human being, the human aspect that I love bringing into the conversation are unions coming to gaming. People like myself being a part of the conversation who have limited funds for being a retired guy. Game Pass is going to get better, and they're going to offer it in more places for me to play wherever I want. Those are important to the conversation. That's why I find this absolutely fascinating. But Everborn, sell your brand, brother. This is going to be a big year for the Everborn saga. Talk about your $60 package that's available, and what else do you got going on with the Everborn saga?
Yeah, it's we are putting all of the books together. It's actually $50 for all the books.
Oh, it's $50. Okay.
But that will get you the entire Everborn saga up to date. And we have 4 projects in production right now. We are halfway done with Ariel's Adventure Chapter 2. We are also halfway done on a new series called The Remnant, which is going to be over 100 pages long. Nice. We have Prince of Arcadia Chapter 5 coming later in the year. And we are hoping to get the Redlands game out. Also, the Redlands Chapter 2 will be coming out at the very end of the year as well. So many things happening. And just stay tuned and go to everbornsaga.com and Everborn Saga on Twitter, and Everborn Saga on YouTube, and Everborn Saga on Facebook, and Everborn Saga on Instagram and TikTok, and follow me in all those places. But again, I promise you will be blown away if you go to everbornsaga.com right now. And the best is yet to come.
Yeah.
And
congratulations to Kay Asante as well, with you guys on your channel hitting 1,000 subs,
yes,
man. That was
right
awesome
before the new year. Right before the new year.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. He is on vacation with the fam now. Yep. I think we are going to be back on January 17th ish. So not this Saturday, but the following Saturday, if I have that correctly. It might be the 13th.
I'm pretty sure that's correct.
Yeah. Or the 14th. Sorry, the 14th, January 14th. We are back with the first Gaming Circle podcast of the year. I don't even know who the guest is going to be yet. It might just be us because we got so much to catch up on. But we'll see, man. We will see.
Yes.
Everyone,
we'll definitely see you back here next week for sure. We'll see you on the Gaming Circle podcast. But ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for Primetime Gaming for this Wednesday evening. Tomorrow at 12 p.m., I'm sitting down with Retri from Game Pass _Daily. We're going to be talking about the union situation that was just announced for the workers or the QA testers at ZeniMax. We're going to be talking about some of the stuff that went down at CES this evening. That's tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's a solid 90 minutes of great talk. Hopefully, we'll see you back there. And of course, I'm going to close out. A big shout out to all the super chats. Thank you. There was one I did miss. Let me make sure I get that. Yeah, it came the way of Sotnist. Drops a very generous $2 super chat and says, union busting will make the game's news cycle a war zone. I think once it's in, it's in. I don't think you're going to see any kind of union busting, especially at Microsoft with their, with the way that they're, they've taken a hands off. Hey, make unions. We're okay with it. I can't say that that's something you might see at Sony. I'm going to be honest with you. Sony does not want unions. And I think that's one of the biggest. It may not be the front part of the conversation for Sony. But it's certainly a conversation that, we've heard. Rescue from the Biscuit actually said it, that there has been a lot of reports out of Sony's developers with crunch. Naughty Dog is notorious for that. So who knows what's going to happen, but I think it's ultimately going to be great for the people, the human beings that actually make these games. I think them having rights is incredibly important, but I want to close out the show, folks, with something that's important to me. Hopefully one day it'll be important to you. And that's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. And he would say, Craig, treat others how you want to be treated. And also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, son. I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. We'll see you next week on the newest episode of Primetime Gaming with Mr. Boomstick and Friends.